Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well, hope you're relaxing, chilling with some fam today. Shooting this on a holiday, but you may see it later. Today, we are going to be ranking the XXL 2017 Freshman Freestyles from worst to best, 10 to number 1. 10 being the worst, 1 being the best. And yeah, that's it. You know, hopefully you guys caught these freestyles in a previous video, which I will link down there in the description box. I already talked about my thoughts on the XXL 2017 cover. I believe we also have freestyles, not freestyles, but ciphers on the way very soon. So I figured I should get this freestyles ranked video out sooner rather than later. So again, this is my list, and I will give some reasoning as to why which person got into which spot, and let's just get into it. Ooh, this should be no surprise to anybody who saw the freestyles Playboi Carti at number 10. This is easily the worst of all the freestyles in the list. It was a trash freestyle. There's really no excuse for it. There's really no explanation for it. It seemed like he was barely trying. Now, I get that it's not really Playboi Carti's style, you know, to sort of jump in with a freestyle, to come in with some hot, clever bars, a whole lot of energy. You know, he's more of one of these just zanned out, like laid back trap rappers who is mostly ad-libs, mostly refrains. But, you know, again, he didn't even try here, you know, and it's very obvious that he didn't try. So, you know, this is easily the worst freestyle here, but I think it's mostly because trying to get Playboi Carti to freestyle is kind of like shoving a square peg into a round hole. But yeah, worst freestyle, no question. Worst freestyle, though, from somebody who I think is actually capable of dropping a decent freestyle, or should be capable of dropping a listenable freestyle. That goes to MadeinTYO. This was so painfully lackluster. It barely held my attention for the 45 seconds that it lasted. Dude mostly just kind of repeated this ridiculous line about, this is mumble rap. Old heads don't want none of that. This is mumble rap. They don't want none of that. Brr. Like, he really just kind of dumbed it down so badly before the freestyle was even halfway over. And he just kind of fluffed it out at the end because I don't really think he knew what else to do. I think he just kind of stumbled and just never really found his footing again and just decided, well, I'm just going to repeat this one line over and over and over until the freestyle's done, because this was weak. This was disappointing. Easily the most pitiful of all the freestyles. At least Playboi Carti came in and, you know, he looked like he knew what he was doing. He looked, you know, this is me. This is my style. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to, you know, sort of hem it or change it for a XXL freestyle. This is what I do. If you like it, then that's it. You got it. So there we go. That was easily the most pitiful freestyle. Number 8. We're going to go with a Boogie Wit da Hoodie. Boogie, unfortunately, in his freestyle, super lackluster, and he kind of came off as one of these artists that they're one of these hybrid rappers who also sing, but he has no business singing because his singing voice is terrible. The singing at the very start of the freestyle was really bad. I think he tightened it up a little bit with his flow and the bars that he was dropping toward the second half of his freestyle, but it was a really awkward start. Really bad footing, and I would actually say he, you know, MadeinTYO, also Playboi Carti, and even the number 7 spot, like all of these artists sound completely awkward without an instrumental behind them. It's like as soon as the beat's gone, as soon as the beat's not supporting them, they don't know what to do, or they just sound like, wow, this person doesn't really have a voice. This person doesn't really have a personality. This person doesn't really have a style. Listening to them freestyle is like watching paint dry. And that was kind of the case again with Boogie Wit da Hoodie, unfortunately. Again, also kind of the case for our number 7 spot, Kamaiyah over here. For whatever reason, she sounded totally awkward on the instrumental. I expected a little bit more from her. Easily, you know, not the worst freestyle in the bunch, but kind of the generic braggadocio in her lyrics and, you know, the really basic kind of plain flow, the lack of enthusiasm, the lack of electricity, the lack of excitement. It all just kind of led to, one of the most forgettable of all the freestyles in the bunch. It's not so terrible that you're like, ugh, ew, gross, disgusting. But, there's nothing really all that special about it either, unfortunately. Number 6 spot is Kap G, who I actually did not expect to place as high as he did on this list, because I had heard, his mixtapes, sort of doing a little bit of research on him for the cover video that I did. And, there was really nothing special about his songs, in my opinion, as far as, his delivery, his style, the sound of his tracks. And believe me, this is the number 6 spot. I wouldn't say, it's a diss to him or it's disrespect to him or anything like that. As far as all these rappers go who are, part rapper, part singer, he easily came off as one of the more capable singers, one of the more charismatic performers. His "I'm gonna give me a riff" little refrain at the very start of the freestyle did go on a little long, did get a little incessant, but once he came through, I think he actually gave a really good performance. Solid flow, the bars were okay. And from there, I think he kind of held on to that melodic element of his delivery very tightly in a way that was kind of impressive to me. Even when he started flowing a little bit faster and was rapping in a more direct fashion, he really never kind of let go of that melody. So, there was kind of a melodic, catchy element to his performance as well, almost throughout the entire freestyle, that I thought was really good. And he switched it up a couple times too. It was actually pretty cool to kind of see him, hopping from flow to flow, a sound that was a little bit more rap-centric, a sound that was a little more melodic. It seemed like he came off a little more versatile than I expected him to be. If this dude buckles down and concentrates on trying to make songs that have a bit more of a distinct character, not just obviously trying to go for the dumbest, most watered-down viral hit, I could see him going places over the next couple of years. Next, another person who I didn't expect to place as high on the list, PnB Rock. Again, a person whose music, a lot like Kap G, when I heard his music, I was like, But I actually think his freestyle here was one of the most capable of the entire bunch. Not only were the lyrics incredibly personal, almost heart-wrenching in a way, but again, I think he was another one of the better performances as far as these rappers that have more of a melodic delivery. I think that melody he came through with at the very, very finish, at the very tail end of his freestyle, was killer, actually really good, really stuck with me. And just the emotion of his performance too, the passion he was giving when he was kind of talking about, these dark times in his past and what it took for him to get here, his mother, the mother of his child. There were a lot of interesting sort of personal details throughout the freestyle as well. I would say the one thing that kind of held it back was just a little bit of a lack of enthusiasm from him, a little bit of a lack of energy or also consistency in his flow. There was a moment where it seemed like he almost paused a little bit and he tripped up. And he didn't know, where to go for a second. But once he recovered from that, and all the credit to him in the world, it seemed like he did kind of do a bit of a quick recovery there. If you watch it back, it is kind of apparent that there was a moment there where he, sort of didn't know what direction to go in. But once he, hit that recovery, it was just like smooth sailing from there. So the performance was a little off. The energy level was a little off, but there's still a lot of good things about PnB Rock's freestyle. Next, at number 4 spot, I would give it to Aminé, who, honestly, I was looking for a little bit more energy from, a little bit more passion from, but I was actually kind of taken aback and surprised by the fact that he didn't come off as much of a jokester. He didn't come off as tongue-in-cheek. He didn't come off as silly. He actually gave a very personal and detailed freestyle as well, talking about a myriad of different things, being with his friends, movies, cereal, his father's diabetes, and he's eating agave on his pancakes or waffles or whatever. Actually like pretty solid, vivid lyrics from him on this freestyle. This is another one of those freestyles, though, as far as structure, kind of like PnB Rock's. It was a little like disjointed and messy, like he went into a lot of different directions. It was cool to see him kind of switch it up so many times, but like it wasn't the most cohesive freestyle in the bunch, but still overall a really good performance. And, I expected him to perform high. He did perform high. He did end up being one of the better freestyles here. And, I'm just looking forward to seeing what he does on his upcoming album because, what he's delivered here is pretty good. What I've heard so far is pretty good. This freestyle is pretty good. Just anticipating good things. Next at number 3, XXXTentacion. Did not expect him to land this high on the list, honestly. I thought I'd be kind of underwhelmed by whatever he delivered. And, certainly in a way, it was kind of like, the emo, edgy freestyle that I expected from XXXTentacion. But when I looked at it as objectively as I possibly could, I did realize that it was one of the better performances here because he did come through with this kind of low-key, grimy, dark, really like kind of left field, very grim, sound of his voice, very grim personality, which again, you kind of expect, you kind of want from him. He didn't sort of flip shit and scream like a lot of people kind of probably expected him to do. Also, he had this kind of weird spacing with his bars that I like quite a bit. He would kind of leave a little bit of space in between each one to kind of let you process and think about what he was saying. And then once he kind of went back in on the next one, he'd hit you with that speed. He'd hit you with those descriptions. He'd hit you with those details. Also, what a lot of people have been freaking out over here about is the fact that he sort of took shots at J. Cole on this freestyle a little bit, sort of referencing J. Cole's False Prophets track, and talking about a religious iconography, linking it to that, making fun of, or sort of poking fun or sort of exposing in a way these mainstream rappers, kind of J. Cole as well, as sort of being false prophets in a way, as, there's a whole lot of, message as it were, but, not substance in a way, or not like, anybody really kind of putting their lives on the line for the stuff they're saying on a track. So I thought there was a lot of substance to what he rapped here. I liked his delivery. I think it could have been a little bit more interesting as far as, like the presentation and everything. If there's one thing that kind of turned me off about the freestyle and about him in general, sometimes it seems like, oh, he's a little bit too cool for this. I'm too cool for this, guys. I'm really talented and I'm going to show you that, but I'm going to look like I'm not really trying. And that's just kind of like, ugh, I'm a little over that personally. But still, one of the better freestyles here. Can't take it away from X. Next, number 2, Ugly God. This is probably one of the first freestyles from the bunch that I watched, that I heard, and I loved it from when I first saw it. I still love it now. It's one of the funniest, most entertaining, most quirky and silly and ridiculous freestyles of the entire bunch. Ugly God, I would love to see him sort of, put out some full-length projects, kind of transcend the meme status that he's kind of in the midst of right now into maybe a somewhat, legitimate artist, but, still kind of keeping that comedic edge up, still keeping that personality up. Nearly every bar he dropped here was funny. I think for a guy who a lot of people see as silly, or a lot of, hip-hop heads discount, he came through with one of the more solid performances, one of the more solid flows. There wasn't a moment throughout the entire freestyle where it didn't sound like he didn't know where he wanted to go, didn't know what he wanted to say, didn't have a funny quip or, something hilarious to say. Again, easily one of the most confident and well-executed freestyles and performances of the entire bunch. Again, like lots of personality, lots of character coming from Ugly God, of course. We hear that on his songs. It's just awesome to sort of hear it in the raw, hear it in a freestyle performance done so well. He's clearly a guy who, at the drop of, a hat, can sort of, do this sort of thing. He's not just simply a track artist. He's not just simply a studio artist. He's obviously a performer as well. And that really came through on this freestyle. And number 1, I didn't expect him to land so high, even though I do think he was one of the better and more legitimate artists on the XXL cover, but easily my favorite performance, my favorite freestyle, that goes to Kyle. Kyle really came through on his freestyle over here. A lot of, and it's really because I think he, really he turned up to 11 all of the things that I think a lot of the previous freestyles did well. He came through with character, he came through with personality, very solid performance, had lots of space in between his bars, and it felt like he was thinking about each lyric that he was delivering to you, almost in a way where it was like he was talking to you, but not, because there was a very solid sense of flow there whenever he would drop a line. Also, the incredible amount of personal detail and just emotional qualities of his lyrics too. He's not just simply just giving you a bunch of braggadocious trash. He's not just simply giving you a bunch of trap bullshit or something like that. And also he had some funny lines and sort of observations here too. The answering, sort of the critique that he sounds like Drake. Who doesn't? Maybe a little bit of a cop out there, but still, I thought it was a decent and a funny bar. And I can't really think of anything else that stood out to me or made his performance or made his freestyle significant. Again, he had the flow, he had the character, he had the personality. I think he had some quality lyrics. I thought there were a lot of, personal and emotional details in there that were really interesting and telling. And a great sense of humor as well. Not that these things are necessarily the only things that make a great freestyle, but, in my opinion, Kyle brought the most personality. He just had the best performance. He, was the most interesting lyrically. And, I feel like he hit me on so many levels with his lyrics. He had some motion. He had some moments that were a little more personal, a little more emotional. He had some spots that were really hilarious. He had some spots that were a little cocky and charismatic. So it was just kind of like he did a little bit of everything really well. And that's essentially my list over here. The 2017 Freshman Freestyles Ranked, guys. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of these freestyles, which ones were the best to you, which ones were the worst, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Again, next to my head over here, you can catch a video of me reacting to the XXL 2017 Freshman cover, and I will see you guys in the next video.